the unknown energy is creation. You're literally, it's Play-Doh. You're working with that in your body, you're working with that outside of your body. Your soul is just kind of feeding it to you in format that your body can understand the best. All right. Hi, Anya. How have you been?
Hi.
Hi,
I'm okay. It's
everybody.
beautiful to be back. Hi, all the beautiful people watching and tuning in. It's really nice to be connecting in.
Very much so.
It
So
is.
we've decided to just come on weekly, and sometimes we'll miss that for sure. uh,
Yeah.
but I feel like kind of where we're at right now, it's a good check-in every week to see because it's shifting kind of immensely, and each week has something new to bring, huh?
Totally. And there's a lot of new shifts and perspective changes and little things that, we can be consciously aware of and like adding into his daily life that can maybe just make it a bit easier. So if we jump on and just like give you a little bit of something or a bit of our reflections, there's not much like knowing on what the structure is going to look like too much in the immediate future, but at this current moment it felt really comfortable and really like connected to just show up with you guys. It's more just a reflection of, like Z said, the energies that are ever changing each week and little kind of tips and things that we are implementing that might also help you guys as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say over this last week, it's been a lot for me of getting rid of stuff, just things that I don't
Mm-hmm.
need, things that have made me exhausted, lots of physical purges that really have helped open up the space. And it kept me busy too, because in the times where it's in between, and like you said, it's this infrastructure that's it's there. I can feel it's there. I don't know the nose yet. I don't have all the clarity on all the points. I can just see them coming in, and
Yeah.
that leaves my body in this deep unknown energy and a lot of creation energy too. So what do I want to do with it? And for me to get
Yeah.
myself into a different vibration, I'm like, okay, well, if I'm opening up space, then let me get rid of things that I absolutely don't need, which
Yeah.
is a lot.
Exactly that. Yeah. And it's like, I think the analogy I used last night with my Tuesday group was, it's like, when you first move house and then you get like, you start emotional at first about all the things that you're like missing, the memories, and you kind of like go through all these emotions. And then it gets to the point where you kind of then just like waiting, like things are kind of like packed up and you kind of like half ready to go and you're just like finishing the jobs. And it feels like now there's less of the emotional attachment to the work that we're doing and less of like the
Yes.
stickiness, compared to even the beginning of this year and the end of last year. It feels like we're still doing the same kind of decluttering and clear up and releasing and clearing the same layers, if you will, but with less emotional attachment to them,
Yes.
and it's like these are big layers. I think a couple of them I'd name is like the authenticity piece, which we spoke about a lot, the being open to receiving piece, which we've also spoke
Yes.
about a lot. Self-worth is tied into that hugely. And like you said, that creative energy and finding somewhere to place that and somewhere to put that. But it
Right.
definitely, there has been I call it the limbo zone. It's this kind of in between waiting room feeling where you kind of just sat there in the waiting room, like, okay, I have to be here at this current moment in time, but I'm not sure when I'll be called, when the next step's coming through. But, for now, I'll just kind of get comfortable in our little limbo zone.
Exactly. I do really appreciate the limbo zones. And that's
Mm-hmm.
because it gives me an opportunity to also relax and just be. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's really important. I don't have to do anything. I'm just gonna sit and relax into this. And when I hear an action point to go for it, I'm gonna go for it. So if that's
Mm-hmm.
this last week it's been okay, I'm going to go out and do a fire now. I'm going to just move it that way. Or I'm
Yeah.
going to go be in the crystal hot springs or something that's going to allow the energy to move its way through, but also keep me in flow.
Yeah. And I love that. And I liked what you said about the piece about rest because that's kept coming up for me and it keeps coming up for me and it keeps being brought to me because I do struggle with that in the human. I am quite a overproductive human. I find, and again, that's connected with my own patterns and programs and traumas. of like needing to be overproductive all the time, you know, and not necessarily having that ability
Right.
to balance the rest too much. And I've been forced to rest a lot recently, and you know, I've had no choice with my body, so I've just kind of had to do it. And it is sitting with that sometimes, you know, sometimes if we're not hearing the lesson by being told it gently and being encouraged to do it, then we do experience more physical things that kind of sit us down a little bit and make us reflect of, you know, this needs to change the way that you are kind of just spreading more time around would be, you know, prioritizing time, prioritizing energy, you know, looking at who you're giving energy to, like you said earlier, and what you're giving energy to that could be potentially stripped back a little bit so you have more energy for yourself and more energy for your own creations and for your own family and things like that, rather than being that support system for everybody else. That's not meaning that we can't still have a role
Right.
in the ascension, but there is kind of a deep need at the moment to be looking very close to self and very close to home to kind of make sure that our energies and our frequencies around us are in flow and in harmony, so that when we are potentially then ready to help others, it's coming from a place of wholeness within that then reflects outside, so that it's not coming
Right.
from, you know, like mismatched energies and trying to give from a cup that's not full, you know.
Oh, for sure. I would say right now is
Mm.
the distinct time where mismatched energies are going to be very clear and it's going to be distinct. No,
Mhm.
that is not going to be working for me. I know for me in
Mhm.
the space of working, when we talked about this a little bit earlier, working with our physical bodies and the energies that's coming in with our physical bodies. And they're kind of in this unknown space and they're not exactly sure how to deal with certain types of frequencies and energies yet that come into the space. So my body has been very in tune with that is an absolute no in my existence, period, and is very sharp and direct with those boundaries. Um,
Yep.
versus like, huh, I'm not exactly sure what that is. That's curious. It's like it's
Mhm.
not that anymore. It's absolutely not. I have other places to be, and it's not there.
Yep.
And so
Yeah,
I found that
clear.
directness to be clear.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. Clarity is finally making its way forward, but it had to take like removing the deep emotional attachments to the layers, if you will, that were being removed, so that we could look at things with an unbiased perspective and look at things with more of like a, like I said, clear mind, clear perspective, and clear frequency, instead of trying to always make sense of it.
Right.
Mm.
So we're at a bit of a delay, everybody. I'm just gonna say if that
Oh,
comes
is there a delay going on?
yeah, there's a little bit of a delay running through there, and that's okay. We'll just keep going with it. This was something that was kind of heated, came in last night, so we'll work with the energy with it. I'm just gonna say if I'm not meaning to talk over you if that's the case. Sometimes it might happen because of the
Don't
delay.
worry. Don't worry. I'm usually accidentally doing it myself when I get excited about something. I'm like, "Ooh." So I'm having to usually hold myself back from accidentally talking over people.
It happens, everybody. Yeah, so I would say another piece that's coming into this over the last week would be for me, there's so much of myself coming back home that my
Mm,
body is trying to work with. Oh my gosh, that is a lot. There is a lot that seems like I'm not exactly sure how I'm gonna be able to carry all of that in my body, right?
yeah.
So, it's
Mhm.
being really, really, really calm with the bodies and talking to them, seeing what they wanna do. It's also been for me, what's gonna get you excited because that excitement portion of it still is a shift in intention and a shift in
Yeah.
perspective into, okay, if that's not it or it doesn't feel appropriate in my body, what can I do to do that? So it's literally random bouts of dancing, random acts of singing, all of those things coming into play, wearing costumey clothes and going out just for fun, just to allow my body to,
Lovely.
to play with it instead of being like, oh, this is so unknown. I don't know what I'm going to do. Right.
Yeah. I love that perspective because you're offering an alternative, because that's what I was kind of like trying to process yesterday. Even though we're in this limbo zone, there's this deep kind of need to be prepared and organized and have things ready and like in all aspects. So that could be in a personal aspect of what you're going through in your own life, or it could be literally like prepared for the ascension, preparing for the next layer of your healing. And there's like always this this feeling at the moment to be like working on self and working on things and looking in the human realm of how we can make changes. But then in the same respect, there's almost that need to let go of control and need to let go of like knowing the outcome and when it's going to happen and what it's going to look like and how it's going to look like, and really kind of letting go of that human control that we try to do in the spiritual realms and allowing them to coexist in the body. I'm familiar with both in separate senses, but I'm not familiar with both being called to coexist within the body at the same time. And so that was like a really weird, uncomfortable piece for me. And I'm still sitting with it because I'm still feeling the need to be prepared and organized in some ways. But then I'm also feeling the calling to just kind of ease off and let go and rest. Like you say, just, just
Mhm.
let the universe and the divine timing go with the will of what the universe is meant to kind of bring forward at this time. And so it's this strange adjustment to both of them feelings being existent at the same time and knowing how to navigate that in the body. In my physical body, that's definitely what I found a little bit of a challenge this week, and knowing what to do with that energy, because it, like you say, it feels like creation energy. And I feel like, oh, I could start a project, I could direct it there, I could do this. But then it also feels like I know at this current time, I'm not going to be able to dedicate a lot of energy to it because of my personal circumstances. And so I am kind of left with this energy like, okay, so where do I put this energy? Where's it going? And it's finding new ways to kind of release it, like you say, and not even release it, but like replant it is a better word, I would say, like regenerate it, reuse it. And even if that is creating a list of ideas of things you want to create in the future, like you don't need to fully start the immersive process if you're not quite there yet, but you're feeling that energy of inspiration and creative pull, then write, like get a notebook specifically for ideas and creation and just keep writing down like that, the course idea you've got, the book idea you've got, the product idea you've got, the but anything that's coming forward, and write down some details, ask yourself questions like what would it look like, where would you start, and all these different layers to it, so that when you do have the capacity and the time in the human, when you want to revisit that energy, you have familiarity there, you have a base ground, you have like a grounding place from this energy that's coming through now in this limbo zone. So that's kind of my interpretation and my take on it.
I would say, and I super appreciate that coming back into what are our bodies doing with this creation energy. And I just want to give a perspective on like creation energy is such an interesting space for the body, and if our bodies haven't been used to that much creationary energy, it really goes into, it can go into overwhelm really fast. It can go into a little bit of shock. It can go into confusion, a little bit of delusion, because there's so many things popping up all at once. And I just want to tell you all that that's a very normal process that we're in. And so if you are
Mhm.
experiencing that, it's a-okay.
Yeah.
It is a space to work with that energy. It is a heightened sense of everything, and yet it brings you to a space of so much unknown in your body. It's a lot of unknown energy, because the unknown energy is creation. You're literally, it's
Mhm.
Play-Doh. You're working with that in your body. You're working with that outside of your body. Your soul is just kind of feeding it to you in format that your body can understand the best. So I'd say with creationary energy, sit with it. You can use the notebook, like she said. Sometimes for me, I've had so much coming through that I'm like, there's no way I'm writing all that down. So I'm going to trust
No.
that that's going to come back when it needs to. Another process to that in the creationary energy is really allowing yourself to surrender to whatever is coming through throughout the day. Because I would say right now in the collective, and me feeling within my own body, is it can be something different per second, as it should. That's
Mhm.
quantum realm, right? There's an infinite amount of possibilities in there. So allowing your body to be like, wow, that is a lot coming in. I'm going to be curious about it, and also I don't know, and I can stay in the unknown. And the unknown just
Mhm.
is more of me coming into the space, right? It's just more of me. If I'm feeling unknown about something or a little bit overwhelmed, essentially the way the dynamics work is there's more of me coming back into the space. There's more wholeness of me
Yep.
that I'm going to be experiencing. I might not know what that looks like, but can I sit with it for a second, embrace it, and realize that more energy is coming back in for me to express myself fully and stay connected to our reality in a completely different way, with community, with our collective way of working together. All of that's coming into play because my body's like
Mhm.
really excited to be working with people. It's like, no,
Yeah.
that's a group. I'm gonna be out working with them. I want to go do that with them now. And it's never been like that. It's more been like this isolated version of self where I'm like,
No, I get that.
yeah, I like my space time. And now it's like, I really like to do these projects with people and they're all popping up into my reality. There's these
Yeah.
lines coming out. Okay, what do I want to choose to do with that? But it's exciting to be out with people and those who you would call your family, your tribe, your little pod, whatever it is, are coming into play. And for me, it's been a good remembrance, just walking and working alongside people and having remembrance of places that we've been before in our existence and our parallels and all the places in the universe. And it's really nice to see that there's that light there, or like, oh, I remember that. And we can have a
That
communication
little
point about
spark of that
it.
energy.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I
So
totally agree. And I think that's really beautifully put as well, because we are definitely shifting the way we work and the way, oh, my ears are, my guides must be talking to me. There was like ringing and twitching at the same time. I was like, not right now, please. Give me a second. Yeah, but it feels like this acceptance of that shift. And I feel like as I'm talking about, my body's like moving with it to adjust to it, because for me too, it's an uncomfortable, unfamiliar place. I am so used to kind of protecting creation because there's been so much misunderstanding and misinterpretation and lack of vision sometimes. So I will not usually share a project or something that I've kind of had that creation energy until it felt like it was ready to be shared on a human level and ready to receive like judgment and criticism and disbelief of others, until I knew that I was connected and solid to that vision and could hold that vision. I really wouldn't share it with people. I'd just kind of keep bringing that in and keep working on that. And then when I met Soul Family in Morocco, and then obviously continued to connect with them on all the different retreats and experiences we've all had together. And I remember the vision that came in for the New Earth Gathering, and it was whilst I was there with Honey and Madeline and Crystal, and it was all at Madeline's. And I remember the idea coming in, and I had no hesitancy whatsoever to share that in its rawest form. And it was just like, as I was sharing it with these guys, it was just developing more, and I could see more vision, and they was adding to it and contribute, because there was space being held for vision to grow and bloom. And that's something I've never really experienced before when it's come to like creating projects, like you say, and like creating things into the earth realm. And this need to co-create was very strong when it came to that specific event, which is what we did, obviously, me and you and me and Honey and everyone else that co-created there in the most magical, unbelievable way. Like, it was just such a co-created collaboration of souls, of, like you say, remembrance and familiarity and callings and intuition. And yeah, it was just different. It was different, totally different to the way I'd run the first one in Spain the year before. And I felt the difference on my human system, on my nervous system, on my consciousness. There were still things, that challenges and growths, but it just felt like I was so much more held and so much more seen and supported. And it just felt less scary, I suppose, because I didn't feel alone in the journey of creating that that energy. I could share it, and people were not just supporting it, they were tapping into it and feeling it and letting it grow in their own way too. And that was like what was truly beautiful. And so I see that as how I see the shift of creation these next year or so. Like, when we've gone from being the warriors and the healers and doing like that physical work, boots on the ground, to now we are shifting into being the bridges and the builders of the new earth. And to
right.
do that, we have to be able to create with the flow of co-creation to build a new earth together. We
Exactly.
can't stay in that one individual lane that we've kind of been creating in, if that makes
Yep.
sense. So I definitely feel this expansion that we're going through on an individual level when it comes to creation and bringing things in is to benefit the overall ascension, to be in a
It is.
faster, supported, more community-based way. Because if we get familiar with running events, creating books together, creating projects, courses,
Right.
workshop days, and obviously this is just my you know, for you guys it might look like totally different. It might be branching out with local suppliers and working with local advertisers and going to the local paper places and
Right.
connecting with the community and really like running a local community day and getting all the local businesses involved. You know, it can be anything that's tailored to your experience and your niche, but it is being open to creating, if it feels aligned, with people that are on the right energy, and not being afraid to share them ideas in their rawest form and allow other people to help them grow, rather than like tending to your own garden and then presenting the finished piece. Like, let people
Exactly.
contribute, let everybody grow the garden together. You know, that's kind of what the message I'm getting on that at the moment.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and that's
Mm.
actually been my experience the last little while, is I know that I have an idea. It's not for me to have the entire vision. That's not
Yeah.
my I have my portion of it. And so as I'm co-creating and I'm seeing New Earth builds now, I have lots of projects right now in Salt Lake, and they're doing New Earth community builds. Like the building is happening. It's already here.
Hmm.
Uh, and I know that I have parts and pieces of visions coming through, and I just know I'm supposed to connect with a particular person when I hear it. If that's the
Yeah.
right person to contact, then I'm involved with that. I have a conversation, and my vision of that piece is going to add to the whole picture. And that's
Mm.
how it's been. It's intensely, I would say, over the last 3 weeks for me, is these
Yeah.
projects popping up, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's a place for me in that, and that's coming in, and they're coming in to support any other aspect that I have with the piece or the vision. And even if
Mhm.
that's not a full lane first or right now, a full piece, we're helping support each other in this vision and who we are as a whole. And the more that you can, I'm going to say, the more that you can express yourself too, any little aspect of yourself, any crazy aspect of yourself, anything that is coming up right now to interplay is a part of that vision. So come at it too with curiosity and what actually is fun about it. You know, like I yesterday I walked out in a onesie because I was like, no, it's literally time for me to play right now. And
I love that.
I'm gonna go for it. And in doing so and me playing, I had a lot of connections come into the space. A lot of people contact me for different parts and pieces of projects, and I got to pick and choose what I wanted to be involved with, what felt really
Mhm.
aligned with me and what felt really good. And that was super fun because that is how the creationary and the co-creationary space is. It's a lovely dance that we all have with each other, and it's a very supported space. It's a very loving space, and it is here. Our bodies are just kind of figuring out how we're going to anchor that in. How are we embodying that into the space? And I would say that's a
100%.
golden nugget word right there. How are we embodying the fullness of ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree with that little golden nugget. It is, yeah, I would totally translate that to the same way. How are you presenting? How are you showing up? How are you showing up for self as well? Like,
Right.
you know, there's a lot of things that we could easily struggle with and easily get caught up with and easily get, you know, down in the dumps and stressed out and overwhelmed and caught up in the loops. And if you have, even for a week or two, a couple of weeks, that's fine. Like, it's part of
Totally.
being human, you know, it's part of the experience is to go on the whole roller coaster of this journey. But there is an alternative way. And I think that's kind of one of the biggest messages today is, like you say, how are you embodying that? How are you showing up? And how, like, what choices are you making on a daily basis? What
Right.
connection are you having to your human and soul in between each other? Like, I don't
Right.
live in the same way I used to before I had children, where I could spend most of the day meditating and living in pure intuition and divine flow. Like, I have to live a lot more of a routine, structured, responsible life at the
True.
moment because of the responsibilities of looking after a human. And so it is totally different. And it was adjusting to, okay, how can I still choose to be consciously aware of my frequency, to be consciously aware of like my vibration,
Yeah,
and to be still integrating parts of me and creation and release and like just still doing the energy work basically, but in a different way. Like, how can I still be showing up to do that?
for
And
sure.
so, you know, I kind of shifted the perspective a little bit. And like me and Z was saying just before we jumped on, is there's a lot of physical things you can do to help and a lot of like physical tools you can do, and they are needed a lot of the time, especially in like a moment of needing to just regulate and get on with it in the human. But then
Right.
also it's being aware that all of it is like understanding the processes and the programs and the reflections that are going on in the mind. And even if you're not able to like address it in that moment,
Right.
it's being able to come back to it and reflect on it and, you know, connect into what was kind of what was coming out at that moment, what was asking to be seen, you know,
Right.
if that
Right.
makes
Right.
sense. And
Yep.
so it is like a definite need to, I would say there's things we can do, like if you're at a lower frequency or you're feeling a bit like you've had an argument, you're not feeling great, you're stressed, you're overwhelmed, but you
Yep.
know that you want to be in a higher frequency, you know that you don't want to spend the day like that with your children, with your family, at work, whatever it is. It's questioning, okay, like what tools can I use internally and externally to raise my frequency up, to raise my consciousness, to raise my awareness, to level up my um energy, basically, to
Right.
level up your
Right.
energy field. So, you know, I use music a lot, and I think music is important, not just to like sit there and listen to it like you're witnessing it, but to be embodied in it and participating in it and dancing with it in the same way. It's like
Mhm.
allowing that frequency to literally lift your frequency higher. You know, finding certain music pieces that do that for you, or dancing, like you said, or being out in
Right.
nature, grounding, just putting your bare feet on the ground and allowing that to raise your vibration up.
Yes.
Or alternatively, using the internal things of gratitude and, you know, choosing to lift yourself up into your heart space, into a higher frequency. So you can use the internal and external tools so that you're not necessarily having to stay in that timeline, stay in that vibration. Like that's
Absolutely.
what I think is
Absolutely.
the message that I'm trying to get out in the long, in the little dancing way I'm saying.
You just
And I hope
I loved it.
there
Thank
eventually.
you for that.
Stay country road. But yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
it is. It's like to get to that end, because there's never going to be an end destination, but for this current situation, if we will, like to get to that peace, it feels like, you know, just truly just letting go, letting go of the pressure and letting go of the need to be in any kind of like, yeah, you can choose to raise your frequency up, but then I'm going to contradict it and also say sometimes you need to just be feeling what you're feeling and letting it out. And if you have chose to like level up that frequency, there may be a call to go back to that energy and have a
For
look
sure.
there at a different time to see what was actually going on, because just because we've shifted out of it doesn't mean that it's not going to return back to us, because there's clearly things we need to unveil there and unravel there. So it's
Sure.
multifaceted, but it definitely feels like as a human we are learning how to navigate and dance with our
Right.
soul in a different
Right.
way, and how to work with the frequencies and understand the frequencies in the human way.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I would say for this piece, I always use my whole entire system, my physical aspect, my soul aspect, and my holographic matrix, anything that's around me, as a radio tuner, and it is a good way to
Mm.
look at that. And I have so many different frequencies. There's a bunch of buttons on this tuner, and they either
Yeah.
go low or high. And the biggest aspect with this for me is embracing every single piece that is tuned to a frequency, because every single
Hmm.
aspect of that, even if it feels low, is an aspect of self that's getting itself
Yeah.
rediscovered or shifted. Even if I'm in what is so called a lower frequency, it is still an aspect of self. It's an aspect of source. And so when I
Mm.
do go there, I really like to embrace it. I'm right here, right now. I'm in this part of my roller coaster, but also I'm feeling these high frequencies too, and both can
Hmm.
they can exist at the same time. And so that's
Yeah.
kind of a piece that I wanted to bring in, is that if you are feeling some of these densities or you're a little bit emotional, totally okay. That is actually how we do work. Uh, and I want to bring this into a perspective shift. We talked about that earlier. Perspective meaning how I view my reality and how that reality is coming
Yeah.
back into my field, that frequency. So if I'm shifting my perspective, one tiny perspective, I would say the last couple of days, I had some deeper stuff come up, and my body was understanding the frequency. It was like, yeah, I'm right here, right now. And also, with that being said, I can shift
Mhm.
my perspective into, I'm gonna bring in a song. It doesn't have to be one that I put on, but I bring it in it was like a classical song that it brought in. And it was this really high frequency that came in and created this story out of this. Yes, this is what happened to me. This is something that didn't feel that good. And also, here is another piece to this where it shifted the frequency. As in, I looked at it as something that could be fun in this case.
Yeah.
That sucked. It didn't feel good. And also, I'm going to catalyze it, alchemize it into an experience that's yesterday was, I'm going to put on my onesie, right? And I'm going to have fun
Yeah.
with it. Okay. I'm going to express
Mhm.
it in some sort of way. So that is a piece of
Yeah.
this too. How would you like to express that energy? Because as soon as it's expressed, it shifts the frequency really rapidly. Right.
100%. Yeah.
So, how would you like to create that story? And that's a good thing that I say every single day when stuff is going really interesting, or I see some unknown, or there's lower frequencies in there. And I'm like, how shall I create a story out of this today? And what will it look like in
Yeah.
my game? Okay. That does not mean that I don't go there and I feel that, because I do. Right.
Yeah.
That's a part of my story. I'm going to go into that and feel this. It might be really, really intense and crappy for a hot second. And also, it's just one moment in my existence.
Mhm.
Okay. And the
Yeah.
faster you can look at it as, I'm going to switch my perspective on this, the faster that frequency is going to shift. And it's going to
Mhm.
be a lot more rapid now, which is a part of the body's integration process to it. Is the body's like, I don't know how, wow, that is fast. And I used to be stuck in that loop for a long time. And it looks like I can just do this and I can shift that frequency while listening to a song, and it can be entirely gone and shifted after that. So just be open to what comes into the space and how you can shift that, whether that's a dance, whether that's a song, whether that's singing, whether that's play acting. Yes, I did that the other day too. Okay. How does it want to express out of your body?
And if it's not being allowed to express itself, that's when we start to feel that
Yes.
agitation, restriction,
Yep.
shrinking energy. And that's never a good place to be in. So even if you have to find a way to express it with self where you feel comfortable before you can share that with the world, that's absolutely fine. Start
Absolutely.
writing songs, start writing poems, just write some words down, paint, create, anything. Just allow
Exactly.
the body to express itself in any way that it's being drawn to, and just don't feel any restriction for time or age or responsibility, or all these
Right.
things we kind of
Right.
have to look sometimes and think they are sometimes an excuse because we don't prioritize and that might trigger a little bit
Mhm.
people. It's not intentional, but
Yep. Yep.
it's also a
Indeed.
message to my previous self too. Like, I did used to moan about some things and like, this could be different and this could, but okay, what could I be doing? How can I be expressing myself?
That's
How
it.
can I be releasing? How can I be showing up differently that can change this timeline experience, that can change this daily experience for me? I think it's just remembering that we have that choice, like we don't have to stay in that place.
Right. Right.
Like, that's something that's, I think, maybe it's not taught to us. We're not taught the most basic things about emotional regulation, communication, how to
Yep.
exist as a human. We are literally not taught the most fundamental things. And I think obviously we have a remembrance within our souls, and that's what we're doing with each other now, is allowing each other to remember it. But in the same way, it's also giving people space and time to integrate that at their own pace, and not expecting each of us to be all at the same place at the same time.
Sure. Yeah, and the universe wouldn't want that anyways, because we all have our own perspective that's all unique and very important to the picture as a whole. So we're all never going to be exactly on the same page. We will be able to work in
Mhm.
unity with each other with our own uniquenesses. Uh, but what I'm saying with this and the circle this is, be as unique as possible. Really dive into that piece. And I know when my little victim comes up, I let myself be in it for a minute. I let myself experience the wide range of everything that comes in through the space.
Mhm.
And I feel like that is a misconception in some of these spaces sometimes, where it's like, well, we got to be at a higher frequency. And that's just not, that's really not how our human functionality works at all.
It's
Even
not
with
what
our
it means
soul.
to be human. Yeah.
No, not at all. It's like, I've gotten that question many times. I'm like, "Oh, no, if I'm going in there, I'm gonna go in there. That means, I might be a a murderous person today. I might feel that for a second just to feel it because my body wants to experience that. And that is the connection and partnership that's coming in with the soul. What is my body wanting to experience with my soul? Because my body is the one who has the dynamic. It's actually creating that experience for
Mm,
itself, right? So if it wants to
right.
deep dive in there, then my soul, and I do see this, is very loving about it and is like, all right, there you go. Just jump into that for a second. And my body's like, that really hurt. So I'm not going to do that one again. Right. But it is like the souls are, we're walking with these little babies of humans because we are essentially, we're just learning and we're just growing. And it is not to deny myself from any type of perspective, feeling, aspect, experience that you could possibly experience. Each single one in there is a catalyst for growth. It's a catalyst for expansion. And I can pull from that to create music, right? And I do that. I'll go into those deep places to pull from that or to create poetry. And that creates a really beautiful inflection. So it's about learning how to dance with all of these frequencies that you are, owning it and understanding that if that is something that comes up that doesn't feel good, how then can I shift my perspective or make a choice to create a different vibrational frequency? Okay.
Yeah. And that's the key little nugget there is make a choice. We have to actually choose that remembrance deep in our souls that we always have a choice. It might not be the most comfortable or the most convenient or the
Right.
most financially beneficial or the easiest. Guaranteed, there's going to be challenges and things that come up. But if that's what's right in your soul,
Mhm.
then we always have a choice, and it's remembering that and not allowing the kind of matrix programming and the victim programming of, oh, but this is the only option I have. That's
Right.
not necessarily true. And I don't believe, I'm not saying in the physical realm that sometimes that's not what's going on. I understand that. But I do believe we always have the choice and the power to call things in to create opportunities, to create different timelines, to create different things that then show up in the physical realm because we've made them choices to show up in the energetic realms.
Absolutely. Yeah. And with the choice coming into space, I know that when choices come in, it can create a lot of chaos and a lot of overwhelm because the way this universe works is based off of free will and choice. That has always been the basis for expansion here. And when you get to that point and you're like, I do have so many choices, I'm overwhelmed, sit with that just for a second. And also know too, you're in creation, whether you're taking a physical action or not, right? You are creating, period, nonstop. And so bringing in that piece of it, knowing I'm okay exactly where I'm at, it's entirely okay to be exactly where I'm at right now. That's the embracing and surrendering. And maybe I'm going to stay here for a period of time and just be with that. Okay. Because that'll open up some space. Or maybe it is, I just don't know. And that's another piece that humans can have a hard time acknowledging is that they just don't know. And that's entirely okay. If you don't know, just ride with it for a period of time. You don't have to take any action on it if you don't know, but feeling into it and just riding with it and letting the flow take you, those answers will come into play at some point in the reality. And that's also where
Yeah.
divine timing comes in. Like we are so much on divine timing right now.
So much. And it does feel like we said earlier, that's what I'm kind of like struggling with. Like, yeah, there's all this going on, there's all this productivity, creation, organization, structure, and things going on in the human, but then there is also like this need to just surrender it all to divine timing at the same time.
Yep.
And it is navigating them two pieces. That's definitely what I would say this week has come up for me. So if that's also coming up for you guys in the collective, then I think that's a very resonant thing, and just go with it.
And I will say now with this much creationary energy coming in, it is going to be a constant state of uncomfortable. That is really where we're at in our universe. And writing the uncomfortable is something your mind is not going to like right off the bat. Our human minds really don't like that uncomfortable piece. So when you start to hear these voices come in of like, oh no, I can't do that, or no, that seems a little bit too scary, whether that's fear based or whether that's a protection base, okay, stop for a second and work with your body because that is not true anymore where we're at. It's not, those things are not true anymore. It's really trying hard to hold you back from stepping into yourself in a lot of ways. And it's not wrong either. It's just something our bodies are really used to doing. It loves to protect itself. And this is an expansion over time. So take it very slow, take it very easy. Once you feel those little bit of a barriers coming up or fear things or thought forms that come in to kind of stop you from doing something that might be unknown, push past that a little bit, because I can tell you, if you push into that unknown, you're going to be met more with yourself, and
Yeah.
even more with yourself, and you get to take more of yourself with you the more you can handle the unknown in that ride. And it is a ride.
Mhm.
It's one of those
Yeah.
that gets really intensive too as a ride. So
Really intense. And then sometimes it's really chill and you're like, is it going anywhere? And then you're like, oh, oh, off we go again. You know, like
exactly.
it really is like a whole roller coaster of a journey. But like you say, the more we get uncomfortable sitting with it, the more we get uncomfortable with being open to receiving, being open to expanding, being open to like the more we are trying to control, the more we're limiting what we're experiencing because we're trying to plan it and prep it and control it and humanize it. And it's not the way. And I've known that for a while now, but I'm still working on releasing that programming. And you see it in like the pregnancy and the birth world. You know, there
Sure.
is so much fear and fear-based mentality and fear-based propaganda pushed upon people that it's really hard for them to make a sovereign choice without that fear playing a massive aspect of that, because ideally in the mind there's this ideal of what they would like to receive and create and experience, but then there's these like barriers of programming and fear just completely blocking that way, and judgment as well. And so in all aspects we are breaking down the barriers and going into what feels right for us, but that doesn't mean we aren't going to have to shift through that really uncomfortable fear, panic,
Yes.
you
Yep.
know, protection energy that's being played out right now in the collective energy.
For sure. For sure. And
Mhm.
you'll notice over time, the more you can ride with the unknown and literally tell your body the unknown means I'm seeing more of myself, I'm getting more of me back.
Mm.
The less that protective phase is active in your body, and it takes its
Yeah.
time. But also for my body, when it's perceiving that and it's feeling that in a situation where there's other people around, it's like, oh look, that's not where I'm at, so that's cool. Right?
Mhm,
It
mhm.
understands that a little bit more now. It's like, oh, boop, I'm just gonna boop myself in the nose and be like, thanks. Like, I don't have to be in that space. I'm in a more uncomfortable space because that uncomfortable is like me embracing myself more. But it's not in the I need to protect myself out of fear.
Yeah. And that's a big shift. That's a big shift of knowing that it's an uncomfortable place, but knowing that you need to be there and choosing to be there rather than resisting it and fighting it and not, you know, and just again, it's avoidance. And the thing is, I feel like that's one of the only things like when later on in life, if you make decisions based out of that fear-based energy, that's where regrets come from. Whereas when you make it out of feeling like truly informed, even at the time, if you felt you was fully informed and then later on you don't agree with yourself, but you made that decision because you felt like that was the best decision for you at that time, I
Mhm.
don't feel like I regret them choices. I feel like I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I learned. I'm glad I stuck to it, and I'm glad I expanded. But it's where I made choices and like backed out and didn't do things because I was scared and because I was afraid of what the consequence or the judgment or the unknown. That's the things I've kind of wished I did more of. And
Mhm.
so it's interesting, isn't it? Like when we're making such big decisions in his life moving forward, I think it's really important to question like, is this decision being made out of openness, informed choices, and like trust in the universe, trust in myself, or is this choice being made out of fear?
That's a
Mm.
very important nugget right there. Usually, when I'm looking at that facet, I'm like, was I speaking from my heart or was I speaking from a loop in my mind?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And as soon as because the mind, and usually this is a really quick facet for me because it does go through loops of protection and fear if I go into the mind, right? It
Yeah.
really is a minefield. If
Hmm.
I'm heart based and I'm making choices out of that, uh, then it can be highly uncomfortable, but it's also supported. It's very direct. It's a very
Yeah.
direct actions and perception change. It is something that gives me passion and gives to me. It's an add-on versus taking away, which gets into the mind. Okay.
Hmm.
So if it gives you energy, if it is a very direct connection, if you feel very light and wanting to do it, and excitement, that's from the heart. The mind can take you into routes of being tired, fearful, uh, not
Hmm.
knowing uh, for you what is right and wrong. A lot of times it'll keep you confused, back and forth, right?
Hmm.
It can have you interacting with things in a way that doesn't feel good to you. So would just say, sit with yourselves feel into that. Are you speaking and hearing from your heart, or are you working with the mind? And what's the difference there in your body? How can you create a partnership with that? What does that look like for you? That's a
Yeah,
really intricate partnership to have.
totally agree. I think that's one of the most important partnerships to have, is to be able to communicate back and forth through the soul, through the mind, through the body,
Yep.
because that's the alignment of like the mind, body, soul, and spirit, and the harmony of who we
Yes.
are as a being rather than just a human or just a soul or a consciousness. Like it's the
Right.
combination, the alignment of it all. And that's a lot of the work I do, is the alignment of the aspects of mind, body, soul. Obviously, it's only something you can choose to do, but just help
Right.
guide people on that journey. You know, that's kind of a big focus of mine that came in a few years ago. And I think it is a big aspect of spirituality and a big aspect of physical healing and a big aspect of emotional healing that is deeply forgotten, because it's like once we can focus on one, but we do need to do the multifaceted layers. And that can take time. And it's just trusting in where you are right now is exactly where you're meant to be. Use the tools that you've learned along the way. Reflect on where you are, who you are, choose your perspective, and just kind of remember that you do have that power, because I think a lot of us have been taught to give it away. I just wanted to mention, if you've also been feeling like really fatigued and exhausted and like just so drained a little bit and tired, like not in the worst way, like not emotionally massively, but just feeling, you know, like physically a bit drained, then that's, I think it's just a bit of a recalibration and a realignment, as we were
I would
saying,
say
between the
so.
mind, body, and
Yep.
soul. And
Yep.
it's just creating room to do that.
It is for sure. Yeah. I've
Mhm.
definitely had those periods of fatigue. And I was just
Yeah.
sucking on some ginseng right there to help my
Yeah.
body
There you go.
wake
So
up a
we're
little
all
bit.
in the same boat. I'm just there like, my energy levels are not quite 100% today. So I'm just owning that and sharing that with you guys. And that's the point. Like, we have to show up as authentically as we can in that
Absolutely.
moment and just own that. You know, I'm running on a bit low fumes today, but that's also part of this journey. What is the point
Is
in just showing up for you guys when we're running at 100%, or, you know, on a higher frequency, and not showing the true reflections and layers that we go through this journey? So this is also a reflection of a time where, there you go, yawning halfway through, where we can only do what we can. That one really wanted to come out. It won't wait. Also, this is authentic to what you're experiencing and what you're going through. And like Z said, it's about sitting in it sometimes and not trying to fight it to be productive and be doing the other things. Just going, okay, yeah, I'm having a couple of days where I'm feeling really tired, so I'm going to let my body rest and recalibrate, and then I'll get back to what I need to do.
Right, right, right. It's really a time to go with that because of that divine timing. That is really,
Mm-hmm.
again, I'm going to note that again. It's going strongly with the flow. And my mornings are really intense. I'm usually quite fatigued in the morning, and I generally remember what type of work I was doing the night before. But I would say the last couple of mornings, I was like, "Soul,
We're coming back.
get back in here, you know."
Oh, for sure. I have to
So
do that myself.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, it's been making a fun story out of it. I just put laughing music on and I start like jiggling around like a little kid and
Mhm, mhm.
getting myself up. But however you guys work this process, just own it, own yourselves, own if you are tired, own if you're a little cranky,
Yeah.
take the time that you need for it, knowing that you are exactly where you're at, where you need to be, and clarity comes in bite-sized pieces. So go with it,
Mhm.
go with the flow with that. If that is taking an entire week off, go for it. If that is, I'm hearing a tiny little thing to tweak. That's mine. Like my information will come in at night, so I'm generally up, and that's another piece to it. Having the flow come in then, because my body doesn't like it as much during the day, so I just go with her and what she appreciates and what she likes, and that is what we're working with the body in our partnership. The body, the mind, the soul. Now the body and
Mhm.
the mind piece is now filtering further into the heart. That is part of this ascension process. And
Yeah.
how does your body like to work with things? How does it like to be directed? What does it look like? Also knowing too, when you start thinking more with the heart and you're just intentionally going into that space, more of that higher self and the soul perspective can talk to you from there. So
Mhm.
just
Yeah,
another.
totally true. It's really important that as well. Like, we can always shift up into a different perspective and, you know, see things from a different angle. We have the aspects of ourselves, so it's about remembering to use them, like, and connect with them, and knowing that we don't just have to stay in this human perspective.
And also
Really
please
important.
please be in your humanness.
Yes. Yeah, a bit of both. Bit of everything.
Exactly. You can I'm just gonna say both can exist at the same time where you're feeling all the soul stuff and you're feeling all the body stuff. And it's about those two dancing with each other and working with each other and being able to communicate. So please also be in the entirety of your humanness, whatever that is. Know that you are that as well. So yeah,
Just do your thing. Just
real
do your
thing.
thing.
And I would say, just to wrap that up, with all that we said about perspective shifting, being human, working with both dynamics, take it with ease. This is a easeful space, so I do want to bring that in. Take it with ease. Nice, lots of ease coming in, lots of grace, and I will pull that in and call in that energy for the bodies to stabilize themselves. And if you guys just take a deep breath with that, and just call in the ease for yourself. Ease, flow, embodiment, expression, perspective. All of them get to coexist within you and around you at the same time. And it's okay to embrace all of them or even some of them at a time, knowing that your fullest expression is how you work with the ascension process right now, whatever that looks like to you. Another deep breath. Pull that all the way down through. We'll get that grounded. I'm seeing a few different earth bases here. So I'm like, whichever earth aspect comes up to ground you, call on whichever
Wherever
one.
you are. I always use the roots coming out of your feet. So roots coming out of the base of your feet, grounding you into whatever place it feels most energetically aligned to ground you to. That can be quite a nice one.
All right.
That was some real beautiful energy there. Some real, I feel like we all needed a bit of that ease and peace.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, guys. Love you so much. And also, too, if you have any questions or anything that pops up or anything that you would like us to talk about, too, we're open to that phase. So, yeah. Thank you so much, Anya.
Awesome.
Appreciate you.
No, thank you. And thanks for bringing that beautiful energy work. I think that was really necessary. So I love that. And we'll hopefully see you guys next week.
Absolutely. Bye, guys.